All right, it's 10:30. We should start the show. Isn't that what we just did like 2 seconds ago?
We were just jabbering and it's like, wait, whoa.
We were
We
having
better start.
philosophical discussions around content. I'm Doug,
I'm Todd.
and you're watching Office Flash Friday, which has become so much more than originally when it was Office 365 and it was what was new, right? Like it's become this giant cross cloud thing we do.
Do we have to rename our show Microsoft Flash Friday?
I
I don't
don't
think.
know. I debated, but
No.
off
No.
sounds good, right?
Yeah.
So
No, we're not going to do that.
we're not going to do that. But we could like put some commas at the end of it, like like when people get advanced degrees, they add some Office Flash Friday plus,
PhD.
the PhD edition. Well, this is going nowhere fast. I have some a little security, Microsoft Viva. We're gonna talk that the what's new in January review. That's kind of it for me. I was working on some other stuff for show and tell, and it just isn't where I want it to be to show. So I'm not gonna. so, so that'll be
You're not
next
going to
week.
tell either. Yeah.
I already did tell. Now I gotta deliver on my show. How about you?
Yeah. I've got several Power BI things and some good philosophical discussion around Power Platform governance.
Well, you're up first.
All right, let's do it. I really loved this one. This one is everyone knows if you've done any Power BI, the heart of what you're building in Power BI, aside from if the report is your main course, the heart of it is the data model, right? That you're building, or the data set is what Power BI calls it. And I don't think it would be too dramatic to say there's a bit of a learning curve to build effective data sets in Power BI. You can get up and running really, really easily, but if you have anything of moderate to severe complexity, there's some things that you need to take into consideration to deliver something that's delivers good performance, that is easy to use for your users, that is easy to maintain, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's some things that you want to learn. This post walks through using the best practice analyzer inside of Tabular Editor. So this is something I've talked about before, of Tabular Editor and bringing in external tools to Power BI. One of the great things that we've done over the last year is really opened up Power BI Desktop especially, and things like the XML endpoint in the Power BI service to bring the plethora of great community tools and open source tools that make your life easier, that make it easier to do things the right way, to manage lifecycle, all those kinds of things.
Did
so
you just use
Tabular
Bevy?
Editor is one of those things.
Did you just use Bevy and Plethora in a sense?
I didn't know the right. What was the right?
That was quite good. You have your choice of.
I don't think I've used the word bevy. No.
I have.
I don't know.
A professional friend of mine used to have a manager who would give them a word that they were supposed to work into their presentations like 2 minutes before it started, like for executive things or whatever it is. It'd be like encyclopedia, or sometimes they were super hard, right? Like Tahiti, or some that'd be easy actually, right? But it'd be funny to and then the elegance at which you did your integration, you got a score. Which I thought would be kind of fun, right? It's just like take audience challenges from people to see if we can integrate an audience challenge word into the show effectively.
I love that. I love that. That's really fun.
All right, so
anyway,
proceed with your bevy of thoughts.
So this is the best practice analyzer within Tabular Editor, and there's a series of rules, and you can think of these rules as all of the things that have been built up in the brains of analysis services and Power BI developers over the years, and spit out into things that are checkable and reviewable by a computer. So things like DAX expressions. So using the divide function instead of actually dividing yourself, right? Because you have to do things like pesky check for divide by zero errors and things like that. Error prevention, even just like formatting, like, hey, don't forget to hide your foreign keys. Because who needs to see those? And provide formatting strings for date columns. These are all things that, especially a new, and shoot, you don't have to be a new person to need to use these things. It's just a great checklist for before you go live, or as you're developing your model and putting the finishing touches on it. These are really great things, and some of them are user experience types of things, and some of them are security types of things, and some of them are performance and just internal consistency types of rules that will cut down on runtime errors and those kinds of things. This is, I mean, you can see there's quite a few things in here, and this post walks you through using these rules, which ones you want to apply, and then how to, of course, fix issues. And what I love, of course, is the classic. You're always told at the beginning of your career, "Don't bring me problems without bringing a solution," right? So a lot of these do have fixed scripts that you can use against your data set to actually remediate said issues. So really love this. Developers and coders in various languages, C#, Python, whatever, have tools like this. So why in the heck wouldn't someone creating Power BI data sets? I really love this. So cool. All right. So
it's like healthy operations, right? It's
very
like
healthy.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, I've noticed since we've been doing the show for so darn long, we've been able to see an arc of types of things that are being delivered, and we're well into the mature platform, giving people what they actually need, not just the candy and dessert stuff of features.
I remember back end when we would do some of these like structural architectural reboots of platforms, and we would almost go backwards in maturity in order to establish frameworks that could be more agile.
Yeah. Right.
And you and I just be like, man, I hope this vision works out. Well, so far,
so good.
So far, so good, right?
All right.
I think, some of those early reboots when we try things, I think it's a good lesson for people. It's like it's never too late to take a pause, take a step back, and do it right. You know what I mean? To communicate and say to people, we just got to make a change to this because we thought it was going to be left, and it turns out it's not.
And that's scary, right? Because you never know how it's going to go, and it takes years of commitment.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful we were able to do some of those things. So new Power BI report server for January. It's that time of the year, every 4 months that we get this. And some of the usual suspects are here from the last 4 months of Power BI service delivery and Power BI desktop delivery. Because reminder, both of those come together every 4 months. But one of the great things, if you are doing any kind of GIS work, the addition of ESRI ArcGIS is in Power BI report server. So this is going to be huge for some people, I think. So if you have to be on-prem and you need advanced GIS capabilities, here you go. This is really exciting. So check that out. If I'm guessing a lot of you that are already on the release train of this already have operationalized the every 4 month type of delivery here, a little more palatable. So hopefully that's helpful for you. Speaking of new updates, new release of the Power BI Desktop Report Builder. We've made it easier to publish, right? This is more in line with what has been inside Power BI Desktop for a long time for standard Power BI reports. So we have this publish functionality that's now in the ribbon, and you can easily now publish as opposed to kind of the way that worked before. Some new sample reports, as well as, and I'm about to transition over to this, Microsoft Dataverse connectivity. And I am seeing this more and more and more. And people are just, I'm actually, I don't know, I'm not surprised because we kind of had an internal bet on my team around, would this stuff actually take off, the Power Platform and citizen development. And in my opinion, it's absolutely taking off, and frankly, faster than maybe I had anticipated. So people are really getting value out of this, and really trying to get the most out of it.
Do you remember when we first had the estate, that little radar screen that said, like, here's the amount of, like, problems you have, the canvas of problems, right? And here's the amount your pro development initiatives can do. Here's what you can hire out, and then here's the rest of your business problems that could be solved by applications and technology, but you don't have the resourcing to go get them. You're going to need to rely on the business to go get it. And if you don't, that's where shadow IT comes in. People just go find stuff, right? If you can't give them, a safe, there's a CISO in town who said that he had to, build for people, for his taste, an uncomfortably large water park for people to play in, because the kiddie pool that he preferred they played in, it was too small and not interesting enough, right? So he's like, please stay here. But he said that really once they figured out what the water park, and they could put lifeguards around the edges, and he's like, it was way bigger than I would have preferred, but it was way different than everyone going out in the ocean with the jellyfish, right? Like that.
That's right.
Like, yeah. And so I think the evolution of the control and the maturity and the integration and the ability to, constrain, but still allow people to have fun at the water park is going to be critical.
I have never heard that analogy, and I love it. That's forever going to be my analogy.
I don't want to name disclose, but it was a a sizzle from it was a public talk. So it was I don't mind disclosing the company. I don't think the individual's still there, but it was Deluxe, the company that used to make
Oh,
still
sure.
make checks, right? But they evolved into the small business services company, and in order to evolve from somebody who does paper checks and check processing and that kind of stuff to the amazingly interesting agile company they are, they had to just
Right.
take a whole. They had to kind of reboot their culture, and they've talked publicly about that a lot in a lot of different forums. And so, since he did it at a public forum, I suppose that's fine to praise someone for their public words.
Absolutely.
But I just think it's so fascinating. They talk about how they had to just really ground themselves in a culture of innovation and experimentation, and security being linked in many ways to the finance community is so critical for them, right? So they couldn't not have that. And so it's just talking about how you do services, not this specifically, but anything with that
Sure.
culture of enabling that
Well,
agility that comes from your citizen community, right? It's important.
I think that's a good transition. So transitioning from some of the enabling tools to take advantage of that data in your citizen development platform, Dataverse and Paginated Reports, Power BI, last tab. This is really cool. So again, Power Platform has been thinking of governance since the beginning, right? So I'm remembering I did a Power Platform workshop with our friend Bart bi-weekly for a year or two when I lived up in Minneapolis,
That's right.
and we would spend a lot of time talking about governance, and the features at the beginning were rather anemic and beginning, but it was a new platform. So, but seeing this get built out, and of course, this talks about the foundations of governance and points to some of our existing documentation and resources. If you are doing anything with Power Platform and you haven't checked out these two links right here, right on the page, detailed governance administrative capabilities and the Center of Excellence Starter Kit, then you know what you need to do after this. So those two resources are invaluable for managing this, and really are the seeds and the foundation of managing, governing, and providing the safe water park with the really, really cool slide, right?
With where you can decide where the lifeguards live, right?
That's
Like
right.
you
That's
really
right.
get control.
So a couple of the new things that we're bringing here too, beyond the things that were already there, are cross-tenant inbound and outbound restrictions using AAD. So any of the connectors that are AAD connectors, there are now tenant restrictions and tenant isolation restrictions where you can basically control communications like in and out. So which tenants do I want my tenant to be able to communicate with, and which tenants do I want to be able to communicate with my tenant, right?
Yep.
So really granular control, because a lot of the controls we had before were very, very chunky, like so much chunky that you could basically say you can either use this connector at all or not,
We've
which
talked about
just
it
was
before. When we start out, we have light switch controls, right? And then
yeah.
then you get dimmer, right? And then you get maybe temperature of white light. And then you start to get to where you can control the entire color spectrum, brightness, like you get the full smart bulb controls.
I'd say this one is in the realm of at least the last of the two there that you said.
Right. So you're getting started to control like the color within a white light spectrum, right? Like you can't yet go to all full colors, but you're heading that way, right? It's like this continuum of intelligence that we keep moving down the pathway for.
Got it. And this one I'd put in that same category. So
I
email
love this
exfiltration.
one.
It's
This is
great.
one of
It's
those
so
where I was
simple
like,
and so important. So I'm sorry, you were saying?
no, I said, what's interesting is Todd and I have very different processes, if you will, for the domains we look at and for show prep. But this one, like we both had.
Yes.
It's like
This is squarely where we meet.
yeah, if you look at the overlap, when I think about security, governance, control, operationalization, and Todd's talking about like features and capabilities of the Power Platform, like this one just bubbled up instantly for both of us. So when
Right.
both of us get super enthusiastic about a topic, given the amount of customers we meet with and the projects and initiatives we have, it's probably one that is worth dialing into. I would double tap on the COE starter kit and the related content you called out. That is the starting point. Just go embrace that. And then if you want to come talk to us, like embrace what the capabilities are, understand the capabilities, and then talk about my service process is. Like I want to tie it into, I don't know, ServiceNow, Sharewell, something like
Right.
that, right? Where, a service catalog tool, or I want to have this go into my change board. I want to get an alert to a supervisor. Talk about the reason our show's logo is what it is, mind the gap, a GUI, an API, and a power something, right?
Right.
So really think about how you can weave this in to be really part of your existing governance and control processes. You have great options.
No, absolutely. And like you said, you kind of read my mind when you said, come talk to us. this is a conversation I've been having a lot with organizations lately. We're kind of, again, I remember early in the days of Power BI, I would do a lot of engagements just building reports with people. Like, how do I use
Yeah.
this stupid? And then it
Yeah.
became, okay, well, now how do I get my arms around this? We're to that point now. We're beyond the help me build a Power App, help me build a Power Automate. There's still some of that, but it's really getting to the point where we have like 7 projects going on and like 20 in the backlog. Help us get our arms around managing this platform.
That's right. How do I establish environments with different tiers of accessibility and safety and governance and control? How do I understand what people are doing? How do I maintain a catalog?
That's right. And we can help you with that. So
I can
had
tell
that
one humorous story. We had somebody who had a big governance process on putting things into the team app catalog. Okay?
Okay.
And along came a Power App, and they wanted to do a comprehensive security review. All right? Like a full-on security review. Because it was going into the Teams app catalog.
Okay.
But the Teams app catalog is just like a shortcut, essentially, when you're putting a Power App in it. You're allowing it to be pinned to the left rail. They had no controls over the Power App as a tab. Like, that was perfectly acceptable. What triggered the security review was wanting to pin it to the rail. And I went, well, but the app's already in use by like thousands of people. So that was when the security review needed to happen, not when they wanted a shortcut.
Not when you wanted the shortcut on your desktop.
Not when you want the shortcut. And the security team was like, but our process doesn't trigger until these kind of events happen. I'm like, right. But don't you think maybe the process needs to be modified and the context was still developed where these security reviews might need to occur earlier in life?
And they probably said, yeah.
Yeah, but it was so funny because they're like, you're right. Like, people are really using and building these things. Some of these are like those. If that person owns it, like, we can't turn this off now. Like,
but that's just. I mean, there's nothing. No judgment on that at all. That's just there has to be a moment, right?
But it was a moment where they were like, well, we need a security review now that you need a shortcut. No,
right.
no. Like that needed to be like way back of the bus. So I don't know. It was just an interesting like moment to watch the awareness hit that they had allowed these tools to go. And they hadn't really thought through their governance process. So please, don't be that. All right.
Yep. All right. I want to make sure and give you enough time. Just real quick. The last thing on the governance piece is more data and analytics around the desktop, the RPA flows. So really good stuff here. Check that out if you're doing RPA flows and governing your Power Platform environment. And with that,
did those get renamed to desktop flows?
They did. Yes.
Okay. That was a proper, it wasn't a typo that I saw, something like that.
That's correct. I think that was, I don't know, it was relatively recently, in the last few months.
Yeah, I just wasn't, whatever. As long as people are happy.
As long as people are happy.
Let's, I probably want to start with, I actually kind of want to start with Viva.
Viva.
So.
You just want to say it. Viva.
Viva. So. I'm still absorbing this one, but I like it.
Yeah.
It seems to have brought together a lot of the states around employee communication, resourcing, common activities, and a lot of some of our workplace analytics and some of the stuff we did with Headspace and some of the into a composed thing, right? And I like it because I think the story around this comprehensive thing of employee engagement and well-being and whatever was too fragmented. Like, you had to do too much assembly of all the Lego pieces to get to something that delivered what essentially seems to me to be a very common set of functional requirements. Does that make sense?
It does, yes.
If you knew how to do this, it kind of reminds me, early days, remember when people would come in, like senior SharePoint administrators would come in, and you'd be doing a team session. You sat down with some of these for me, right? And people were like, I could do all this. I'm like, well, you can. But the average user who just wants to click a button and have it nicely automatically organized. Right. So an average user can do way more with Teams on their own because it curates it, right? It provides this framework of tabs and these channel structures, and it kind of handles it all for people. And I'm not saying you can't still go in and, I've seen SharePoint administrators build amazing things that outperform any individual function, but it's that citizen enablement of that capability at scale, right? And to me, this represents some new IP investments and collections of things, but it has like the whole like the learning culture for the Viva learning
Right.
stuff,
Mm-hmm.
like the topical stuff for things for topical expertise on top of it, and I just like I said, I'm still soaking it in because the announcement's what 48 hours old,
Right.
maybe.
Well, not even. Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
24.
yeah, 24. But I essentially appreciate when we make it easier to do what we now understand from millions of customer requirements are emerging as a trend, and then people come to us and go, "Why do you make me work so hard to do this? Like, can't you just like bring it together for me?" And this
Well,
represents
to
one
me,
of those moments to me.
this is Teams doing what Teams has always done best, which is what you just said. Like
Yeah.
that's been Teams' values proposition since day zero. Is bringing all
No.
this stuff together. Like the chat and the calling was like a just a
Yeah,
part of it.
because it says, accessed in Microsoft Teams, Viva Connection provides single entry point for employee engagement. So there's all
Right.
sorts of interesting stuff. Anyway,
So,
and so I would
Pete in the
say I like it.
I would say Pete in the chat is wondering, kind of like I am, what the licensing is going to look like. I don't know if we've really said that.
I haven't absorbed it, but I'll be ready for that by next week.
Yeah, same. So good question, Pete.
That's a
I think
phenomenal question, and I admit, Todd and I, although we work here, we do have day jobs, and I didn't get to it, but it's a legit question, and I will absolutely commit to having a licensing answer around it next week.
I just love the name, Viva.
I have a guess, but I don't want to make it.
Yeah.
So because that's a bad idea. We have signs around here.
Thank you for not guessing. You never want to guess about licensing. That's a
no,
horrible thing.
It's like because someone has your recording. Doug said, no, yeah. If I get licensing on it, I will tweet it out if I find it in advance. But just say, hey, if anyone was following, here was the licensing for the announcement. I'll probably put the announcement and the licensing, not just here's Viva licensing. I'll probably make it a little softer than that. But I will see if I can find it and tweet it out. Cool. Okay, so then there's a January roll up. Which I think we covered almost everything. The breakout rooms, task publishing, approvals on top of it. So we'd sort of like broken all these down. I feel like we were pretty good on top of it.
Honestly, I gotta share a personal story. I love the speed at which these things are adopted and used. My daughter, who's a freshman in high school, their school uses Teams, and she's like, "Dad, did you know Teams added breakout rooms?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of knew that." And she's like, "Those are so cool. We've started using them in class." And I'm like, "That is awesome." So, not only is it for, corporate customers and whatever, it's like, high school, this is having real world educational impact at this point.
Awesome. I did miss this, that they released all the Azure icons in Visio.
Okay.
Nice. Did you see that? All right. Like 250 different Azure service icons.
They're just like baked in. Is that the idea? They're baked in? Okay. Sweet.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Over the years, every once in a while I'll go out and download the kind of SVG PNG pack that's been available in the zip file. So it's nice. That's awesome. That's really cool. I'm gonna.
Yeah, there's interesting elements to that. And the other one was the application guard for Office is GA, which the security person in me was like freaking thrilled about that, right? Because if you don't know what AppGuard is, essentially we've broken down like the whole security framework for it, but you should check it out. It does the whole safe documenting, the safe looping. Like we showed the entire chain one day. Like it's almost impossible. I was doing a security seminar with Rich Lee from Netrix one time when some of these early features hit around script blocking and stuff, and we had like half the room that remained unsecured and half the room that just got an out of the box from over the air provisioning secured environment. And Office native features started blocking our initial attack sequence. So our security workshop got broken because Office is like, this is such a bad idea. We're just not even going to let it happen, whether you have a security feature on or not. You know what I mean? So what we had to do was have that side of the room roll back and do an unpatched old static install of Office so we could demonstrate the security flaw.
That's awesome.
And so he said to people, this is an unpatched, crappy version of Office. But it was an interesting lesson in a moment in time where we were like, okay, we're going to start out from an Office attack. And Office is like, no, you're not. So because we enabled all the things you shouldn't do, right? We were going to have the users click on all the, allow this, allow that, don't do this, warning, who cares? Yeah, right? But you couldn't. It just wouldn't. It was like, that's malicious. That's not acceptable. And so I've watched the progression of built into Office security and guarding, and I'm like, you really got to turn this stuff on. It's amazing. I'm there. You got to turn it on. Got to turn it on. Go turn it on top of it. Last one for me was the announcement this week of the Windows 10 in cloud configuration. Did you see that at all, or no?
I did. Yes, this is awesome.
So I think that the combination of 10 endpoint manager, right, the Windows 10 in cloud configuration stuff, the step-by-step guide in order to do it. So if you want to adopt a Windows cloud configuration pattern for it, like they have this nice, beautiful, like why cloud config, all the cloud configuration benefits, like how to set it up, what is it, how would you do it, what powers it, which is essentially Endpoint Manager, Windows 10 Pro, and Azure Active Directory. So I'm not going to unpack the entire thing, but you can basically turn Windows into cloud-managed streamed endpoints.
Nice.
And I think there are time and a place for this. So I think if you have been using other approaches or your own custom recipe card for doing it, having more supported prescriptive patterns is a good thing. And I would encourage people who are managing large groups of Windows PCs to definitely check it out.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, this has been a topic that I've been dealing with out of necessity at the MTC, because, just even as an individual MTC, you kind of end up with well over 100 or so devices, which for, even a small business isn't that much, but it's still stuff that I have to manage and I don't want to think about.
No, you don't want to think about it. And, SneakerNet stinks, right? I mean, it does. And, the lower touch you can be for endpoint upgrades. I remember a friend of mine I used to automate migrations from Novell to Active Directory domain services. And one of the things we would do, for example, was we would force all the PCs before we did all the shifts to domains and joins. We would rerun the baseline security profiles to reset all the registry values. We had this like sort of health manifest we would run against the computers to return them to a state where we knew their cryptography and everything else was solid enough to move them to join an Active Directory environment, because they've been basically orphaned for years. These are PCs that were, sort of standalone, right? Or on foreign domains with unknown policies, and we'd run these baseline and bring them back. And the amount of work we did to build automation to baseline, right, from change states and whatever it is. Well, we got together about, 6 months ago virtually, and we were talking like everything we built, all the IP we built, was essentially now encapsulated in about 9 checkboxes inside of the Microsoft estate. Like that level of control and all the rest of the stuff. And I was like, can you imagine how it would have been to do those things if we'd have this level of command and control and awareness of states?
That means things are getting better.
Yeah, no, that's my point. Like, this is great progress. And I think sometimes we forget, like in the challenges we have, how far we have come at truly distributed management and the rest of that stuff. I remember my early days where I came with asking for an administrative of my IT director when I was a network admin. I wanted to buy management software. He's like, we could hire a person for that. I'm like, well, only for 1 year, right? If we do this, we've got 5 years of like command and control, right, for the price of 1 FTE. And he's like, so you'd rather have this than another helper? I'm like, I would, because another helper still can't scale to the 900 machines we have. Like, that's still going to mean So that scale leverage thing has been a deep part of my career since the early days, and I like to see when we make progress. So
that reminds me of, like, Scott Hanselman talks about how in the 90s people would have PhDs in scaling a web server, right? And now it's a checkbox in Azure, right?
It's amazing.
And it is amazing.
When I see people whose websites run out of capacity, my first thought nowadays is, how?
That's your fault.
That's a microservices architecture thing. Like
you really screwed up.
Like, if I did that, like, Jeff Brand would like come knock on my door and say, like, why'd you build something so stupid, right? Like, why did you do it that way? I just, like, I don't understand. And there's not like a cost impact to it. You had to try to say, I'm going to have a fixed capacity mindset to my application architecture. Anyway, all right. So
you need to have a growth capacity mindset.
No, I do understand that, when we're talking like billions or something, or a denial of service attack, I'm totally down with that, right? There's moments.
We're having a little fun with it.
But like, when state of Minnesota had the COVID the vaccine registration site go down, and they couldn't even put up a page that said, like, we're over capacity right now or something. There wasn't even like a failback page. I'm like, that's bad application architecture. I hate to harp on my state, but like you know how overloads can just say number of connections, so redirect. Like, that'd be a simple thing.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. It's 11. Central Time.
Yeah.
My soapbox is being taken down, so we'll go away now. Back next week.
Stash it away for another week.
Stash it away. I will dig up the Viva licensing thing and tweet that out along with a little, hey, Viva's cool. And in case you're wondering, here's the licensing. So I'll take care of that. And then I had some of the nerd stuff from last week carry over, so I'll be ready for that. Or I will try to be ready for that next week.
All right. Well, have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, it's 13 below this weekend in Minneapolis, so we'll just roll with hiding indoors, shall we?
That's chilly.
Yeah.
Chilly.
That's stupid.
All right.
All right, everyone.